Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. My name is Tariq Ahmed, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. And as usual, it is my honor to welcome you to the Arewa Mentorship Program session. As you know, our session today is on creativity and innovation in business. And I think when you think about this topic, the first thing to really understand is, what does these two words really mean? So what does it mean to be creative? What does it mean to be innovative? I think a famous author named Adam Grant once said that creativity is nothing but really allowing yourself to, or allowing oneself rather to make mistakes. So the question is now, how true is that? And are people born creative and innovative? A term he coined, originals. Or can people really hone these skills? Now, I know you've got a number of questions that you want to know regarding this talk. So for that, we've invited 3 experts in the field who would not just answer your questions, but really probably talk us through how we can hone these particular skills. So I guess the first thing for us to do now is to welcome our speakers, and for that I'll call on Dr. Akubu, and after that he'll also talk you through how you could get involved with the Arewa Youth Mentorship Program. Dr. Akubu, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tariq. And I think today I will be very brief. As usual, I would like to thank our speakers for honoring our invitation to come and deliver this talk, despite their tight schedules. We really appreciate them. And secondly, as you said, for those that are joining us for the first time, I normally post the links to the AYMP channels, and I will do so also today, inshallah. So I think without taking much of time, you can continue with the program.
Right, thank you very much. So, well, why should I worry? Why should I really bother myself if I have a business that's really, blooming? Or if I'm thinking of starting a business, why should I really worry about creativity when I see a lot of people making a lot of money? And I think these, as I've mentioned, are the questions which our speakers would really dwell on today. But as always, I think it's always important to have an aim of whatever it is that you're doing. Why do we really care about this? And then our aim really is, by the end of this session, each and every one of us present, and even those that will be listening to the recordings, would really better our understanding on how we can hone these skills with regards to creativity and innovation, and how that would help us in making better decisions, thus really positively impacting the life of the Arewa youth and, of course, our country at large. So, as I've mentioned, we've got 3 speakers, and each speaker would have about 15-20 minutes. I know last session I was a bit firm on the time, and I've also noticed that some of our speakers today are academics, and we always have that issue with academics. They always used to lectures of 2-3 hours, so 15-20 minutes is quite short. So if you could really make it concise, brief, I think 15 to 20 minutes, hopefully I wouldn't be bothering you much regarding the time. So you already know that these sessions after the talks, we've got a session or a slot for Q&A. As we always say, if you want to thank us, we really appreciate it. You can just put that in the text box. Probably there are a number of people who have very important, interesting questions. Do leave that slot for them to ask those questions. If you want to type in your questions, use the chat box. Of course, myself, Yakubu, and other organizing committee members would be there to address those questions. And we'll have those asked, and then our experts, of course, will answer your questions. So our first speaker today is Dr. Nuraddeen Nuhu. Dr. Nuraddeen is an assistant professor of business at the Department of Economics and Business Administration in Bridgewater College at Virginia in the States. And he obtained his bachelor's and master's from Bayero University, Kano, and then a PhD from Bradford University in the United Kingdom. His research, PhD research, was on international entrepreneurship. So as I've mentioned, he's an expert in this particular field. He is an academic with a wealth of experience. He's had experience working at Texas Christian University, at the University of Bradford, at Kaduna State, or rather Kaduna Polytechnic, and also at the University of Americas, Puebla, if I said that correct, in Mexico. And over the years, he's taught a number of modules or courses, as you want to call it, both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. That includes international business, marketing, and so on. He's really passionate about entrepreneurship. And I'll just cut his CV short. Some of his favorite hobbies include traveling as well as playing soccer. Doctor, I'll give you about 20 minutes. Thank you for sparing time to be with us today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على نبي الكريم. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I probably would not be able to complete my slides inside 20 minutes. And so I would plead that the panel considers giving me a little bit more time to do justice to my presentation. All right. So thank you very much. The first thing I'd like to just confirm is, are you able to see my slides, please?
Yes, we can.
All right, so thank you very much. Ahmed has already introduced me. Entrepreneurship basically is my area of expertise. That's what I'm really passionate about. Some of you have come across me in some of the work that I've done in Kano, working alongside people in financial literacy ambassadors, where we went around talking with people, discussing entrepreneurship, and basically trying to sell the idea that we, especially in Northern Nigeria, need to embrace the idea of entrepreneurship. But importantly, we kind of need to approach it from a creativity point of view. We have to embrace the idea of creative entrepreneurship, creative business, as opposed to doing things the way that they've always been done. And so I'm approaching it from this perspective. My idea in this presentation is hopefully to get you to appreciate creativity and innovation, link it to entrepreneurship, and that way you will do your business in a better way. You do your business more looking at how can I be creative, how can I develop my business in a way that makes me competitive. So I'll go ahead and discuss the presentation structure. I'll talk about first about creativity, and then innovation. And then, of course, I'll talk about creativity versus innovation, just so that we're clear when we say creativity and innovation. Where does creativity start? Where does innovation then also come in? Then we'll
sorry, I think I've given you quite a very short time. It should have been much longer, so I'll give you about 45 minutes. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much. All right, so I'll talk about that. I'll talk about thinking constrictions, creative thinking constrictions, things that could get in the way of you being creative. I'll talk about some tips to help you be more creative in your business. And then I'll also talk about entrepreneurial creativity, bringing it home, just from a business point of view, where is the creativity? And then lastly, how entrepreneurs form creative opportunities, hoping that this should help you as you develop your own business. So the first thing is, what is this thing, creativity? When we say creativity, what are we saying? So you can just take a short definition by saying creativity is a process by which something new comes into existence. When you do something new, process or an idea or a product, anything that is new, that is being brought, that is being conceived, then it's creative, it relates to creativity. You can break that down, talk about a process of being sensitive to problems, because out there we have an imperfect world. We have imperfect products, we have imperfect services, imperfect processes. All of these things can be improved, can always be improved. Are you thinking about this? Are you looking at the gaps? Are you considering, okay, how can we do this better? The moment you're thinking about new ways of doing things, new ways of introducing ideas, what you're actually essentially engaging in is creativity. So some of these keywords here are being sensitive to problems, deficiencies, what are the gaps in knowledge, what are the missing elements I'm seeing here, with a viewpoint that I want to come up with solutions. I want to come up with ways so that we can bridge this gap. Importantly, many people will do that through making guesses, formulating hypotheses and ideas, which they see can be able to help them solve these problems. Look at this. It's an idea around how the creative process itself manifests, beginning with incubation. This is when your subconsciousness is at work. You're not necessarily at this point having the clear idea as to what my new product, what my new service, what my new process might be. But at this point, you are having hints subconsciously. You understand, for example, in the case of Uber, you understand that people are having mobile phones, they move around with their mobile phones. You understand there's a GPS technology that can now also be available on phones. You also understand that people are moving around, they want transportation. At that point, you're seeing there are gaps and there are actually potentials here, possibilities, right? So by the time eventually it comes to the idea stage, this is where you see the aha moment. All right, you get the idea. Okay, so it seems we can actually capitalize on GPS to develop an app that can actually solve this problem around transportation. People can actually call on Uber and use that for their transportation to get vehicles to transport them. That's an idea, right? And moving forward, you begin to evaluate that and begin to see whether it can really work. Is it viable? Right? You develop prototypes, you develop ideas, and you go ahead and implement it. What happens after that is knowledge accumulation. You are learning as you're doing. And this is kind of like just a depiction on how the creative process might manifest. You start with an incubation period when over a long period of time, you are seeing things and it is beginning to look like there are gaps here and there. What can we do to bridge these gaps? And then you say, aha, that's a point. Yeah, that's an idea that I have. And you evaluate that idea, you implement it into a product or a new process, and you're going ahead and learning as you're doing. Right, components of creativity mainly have been discussed by scholars. And typically the idea is that if you are being creative, you come up with a creative product or creative idea, it is a function of these three things. There is a bit of expertise, there is creative thinking, and there's motivation. By expertise, we mean that you have an understanding as to how things work. It's not necessarily, an expert who has been, has studied something or has a degree. No, but you have an understanding as to how things work. So you need that really for something creative to happen. And then there's creative thinking, right? So you are flexible, right? You're not looking at things in one way. You're already sensitive to the gaps, to the deficiencies that are there. And by that, you are being creative in the way that you think. And there's always usually motivation, which is that you are determined, you want to really come up with something creative. Usually without the motivation, people see ideas and quickly at the incubation period, they drop it. At the incubation stage, they drop it because they lack motivation. So for something creative to happen, you naturally see motivation coming through. Creativity takes time. It usually takes time because for any idea to form really and become an idea, that aha moment, it must have been because for a long period of time, you have been seeing bits and bits of things happening. And then you're beginning to see that there's a gap here, we can bridge it. So the idea is that you will naturally take time to acquire knowledge, and for this knowledge to become processed in ways that allows you to develop an idea, you need time. Time is needed in the incubation. And also, of course, time can now serve as a thinking constriction. When there is no time, really, it impedes your ability to come up with a creative idea. So typically the idea is creativity takes time. And when you reflect this in your, as you do your businesses, when you reflect on this, the idea is that you be patient with your ideas, you be patient with your projects, and that it's going to take time naturally for something creative to come through. Now let's talk about innovation. These are a few definitions I put for you around understanding what we mean by innovation, right? The act that endows resources with a new capacity to create wealth. You may also define it as a process of generating new ideas or new processes so that they result in something useful. So something useful coming through as a result of a new idea, a new process is a very important thing that you need to keep in at the back of your mind. All right. So we talked about creativity really here in previous slides, discuss the ability to bring something that is novel, that is new, without necessarily emphasizing usefulness. And here we talk about, from an innovation perspective, this new idea, this new process should lead to something useful. And also, of course, right, creating something new which fulfills a certain goal. Once you fulfill a certain goal, we see that what you're doing essentially is creating value. By creating value is something that people will be willing to pay for, something that can be commercialized essentially. All right. Manifestations of innovation then become interesting. When you talk to me about innovation, you talk about something new that can lead to something useful. Tell me, what can I see and touch that would amount to innovation? All right. New products, new services, all of this could be defined or be described as innovation, right? A new production process, right? So you're already in business, you're producing something. So if you are coming up with a new way of production that makes you more effective, more efficient, in essence, that's innovation, right? You might come up with a new product promotion approach, how you advertise, how you promote your product, and you come up with new ideas. I have been really thinking about the concept of promotion and advertisement, and I hope, inshallah, one of these days to come back and have a whole session to discuss with you around creative ways for promoting and advertising your products. So that could constitute innovation, right? Also, when you have a new approach to things such as distribution, right? What you see here is also innovation. So if you change the way that you distribute your products or services in ways that has not been done before, essentially that is also innovation. All of these things are linked to what? Your ability to become more competitive. They make you more competitive in your business. As a result, innovation, something useful coming through, right? We also should be mindful at this point that innovation is mundane usually and incremental. Most of the time, what we see around innovation is incremental innovation, right? Just kind of appreciating the fact that it was usually difficult to come up with a product that is entirely new, that is unheard of. If I were to ask you here, what product do you know that came into the market that's entirely new, hasn't been seen before, you would have just a few examples to give me. You might talk about the iPad. I think when it was introduced, it was something entirely new. And maybe just a few other things. The rest of the innovation we see is usually incremental. You know, so you have a fantastic product and the next year it is even more fantastic, and so on and so forth. Your smartphones, your vehicles, televisions, think about any product that you see, the innovations coming through in those products is usually incremental rather than a single major breakthrough that in which we see an entirely new product come to the market. Just keep in mind, as we talked about that those are very important issues. Now, sources of innovative opportunity. What are the things that could actually trigger innovation? What are some of the things that could trigger innovation? The first thing to consider is the unexpected. The unexpected can trigger innovation or can create incentive for people to go ahead and innovate. So the unexpected, for example, is an event that we never expected to happen. That can lead or trigger people to go into innovation. For example, the COVID pandemic was unexpected, right? We didn't have anticipation that the COVID would come. So by the time it came, that created an incentive for people to come up with innovative products because of that. So you have that, the unexpected. Then the incongruous. Incongruous relates to when you have incompatibility. There's incompatibility all of a sudden. That creates an incentive for people to innovate, come up with new ideas, new products, new processes. I'll give you an example. Back in the days, Kano state government determined that it is incongruous with our traditions that ladies are riding on motorbikes. And so they wanted to change that. The fact that they found it incongruous for ladies to continue to ride on motorbikes created an incentive to come up with a new way for transportation. And hence the tricycles, the adedita saus, right? So the incongruous can trigger innovation. A process need. A process is when you have to do something in order to get something done, that constitutes a process, right? Kind of a set of activities in order to carry out something. This could mean that there is an opportunity to actually come up with a new product because of the need to fulfill or to complete a certain process. I was thinking the other day when I went to the US Embassy and I saw gentlemen outside who were trying to take photos of people, passports, so that they meet the specifications, the need, the specifications for passports, passport pictures in the United States Embassy. That's a process need here. That has created an opportunity for people to come and start doing photographs outside the embassy to help people fulfill a particular process. Right? Industries and market structures can also create an opportunity for innovation. They can trigger innovation. The structure of an industry or a market can typically trigger innovation. So if you look at new businesses that are coming into the market that conventionally haven't been done before, is because all of a sudden these industries, these markets have a particular demand for how you do business. And because of that particular demand around how you do business, new products will come into the market. Demographics, right? When you talk about a demographic, you're talking about people with similar characteristics. So because they have similar characteristics, they will have similar needs and wants. And that means an opportunity to come up with innovative products that will meet the needs of those specific demographics. Young people, for example, are a particular demographic. And understanding the yearnings and aspirations of young people might actually trigger innovation. If you look at what Ahmed Musa is doing in some cities, I know certainly Kano and probably Abuja, where he sets up this mini football stadiums, do I call them stadiums, or where you go to play soccer, five-a-side soccer. He understands that young people are really excited about playing games, about being active, and that has created an opportunity for something innovative as what he did. Changing perceptions are there, thanks to technology, mostly. Now we have perceptions changing about how we do things and how we want to do things. this will trigger innovation, right? Due to technology now, we now know a lot about things such as how the weather might change and so on. Now, because of that, it changes our perceptions. Now, if we can understand there's going to be a flooding, for example, or there's going to be a natural disaster that's about to happen, then you can see that trigger innovations, people coming up with innovative solutions because of changing perceptions. New knowledge certainly can also trigger innovation, right? Artificial intelligence is one example. It has triggered the emergence of several products into the market. All right. So as we talk about innovation, the very important thing to understand, having said all of that, is that this is a process rather than just a particular event. Innovation is a process, and so we need to manage it in that way. It's something that is ongoing and continues usually, especially if you remember what I said about entrepreneurship, what I said about innovation being incremental. It involves people, organizations, and even the environment, all of these creating pressures and incentive for us to go ahead and innovate. Because of that, we need to understand innovation in this way. All right. So now let's talk about creativity versus innovation. I mentioned creativity, I mentioned innovation. You may really wonder whether indeed creativity, if it's different from innovation, and where do you draw the line? Where is the demarcation? There's a lot of debate around that, and many scholars typically would use the words interchangeably. But one of the ways to understand creativity is just to conceive it as at the idea level, to view creativity at the idea level, a process of producing a new idea or an approach to a problem, right? But once you proceed with a product that is now useful, that can be commercialized, you begin to talk about innovation, a process that applies the creative idea to development of a useful product or service, or even a new business model. Now you're talking about innovation. This is what Theodore Levitt said. Creativity is thinking of new things. Innovation is doing new things. So typically, you can view creativity as the starting point of innovation at the idea level. Once you proceed to a viable product that is now useful, that is now commercializable, what is happening essentially is innovation. However, it is very important to remember that bright ideas are risky. Most of them will fail, right? When you talk about something is creative, it may not necessarily need to an innovation. It might not necessarily need to a useful product. Yet you have no way of predicting which bright idea will succeed and which one will not actually succeed. Hence the need, the importance of being thorough and also being persistent with your ideas. Persistence itself does not always pay. Sometimes you work very hard on your idea and it still might not work. You want to be patient and take the experience along the way. Let's talk about thinking constrictions. What are some of the things that will get in the way of you actually being creative? What are some of the things that could prevent you from thinking creatively? I'll put out some pictures for you here and I'm going to explain to you. Starting with one, fear of looking foolish is one thing that can really get in the way of you being creative, of you thinking creatively, right? What if I just look foolish? My idea, someone can say to me, that's a daft idea. People will just laugh at it. But I refer you to this picture that you're seeing. This is a British man. What is he doing? He's using this silicone bag to collect fresh air. This fresh air, he sells it in China, and each canister of fresh air in China is around the cost of $85 to $115. Each canister. He's collecting fresh air and selling it in China. So I'm sure if anyone sees you collecting fresh air in Nigeria, most of you will say that's a foolish idea. right? So look at that and reflect as you think about your ideas. If it's a creative idea that you believe in, you don't want to quickly dismiss it as potentially sounding foolish, all right? Another thing that can get in the way of you thinking creatively is that one-way thinking. The idea that there is only one way of doing things. Look at the photo here and look at the groundnut. Some of you have heard me complain about this a variety of times when I deliver lectures in Nigeria. Still, people are selling groundnuts in this form in Nigeria, right? How can you have value when you're selling groundnut like this? When if you go to other places, just in Nigeria, you go to Lagos or other parts of Nigeria, you can see them actually processing the groundnut, refining it, making it clean, putting it in a bottle or something. And because of that, the same groundnut that you see is selling for much, much more money, right? They introduce a bit of creativity, a bit of innovation into selling groundnuts, and they're doing a whole lot better. But what we have here going in the way, getting in the way of groundnut sellers is this idea that getting in the creative thinking of groundnut sellers in Nigeria is the idea that this is a one way, there's just one way to do this, right? If you want to sell groundnuts, bring it and put it on a can like this, and then that is how you sell it. You must avoid that. It's going to get in the way of your creative thinking, right? Passivity is another one, being passive such that you are seeing things the way they have always been. When you're being passive such that you see things the way they've always been, that is going to get in the way of you being creative. All right, look at this particular photo. This is how usually, typically, sugarcane is sold in northern Nigeria, right? Because of this, perception that this is how things have always been. If you want to sell sugarcane, you do it like that. I'm also going to tell you about an example which some of you have heard me mention previously. I was considering taking sugarcane one day back in Kano, and I had someone go to the main road and bought sugarcane for me just for about 200 naira. And they brought the sugarcane, they bought it from the roadside and brought it. I had my wife wash the sugarcane and presented it to me. So, you know, I took the sugarcane, I had a bite or two, and I said to her, how much did they buy this sugarcane? She said, they got it from the roadside for 200 naira. So, you know, I started thinking, I said to her, don't you think if this person selling the sugarcane had actually processed it better, put it in a nice packaging, and put maybe a NAFDAC registration number, don't you think we will go to a store like ShopRite or WellCare and buy the same sugarcane for probably 1,000 naira? Well, she dismissed that and said, Megida, you are doing Santi. That is, this is Santi. So I'll leave you to think about that, whether it was actually Santi or it was the professor talking. So there's that. Seeing things just in one way, how they've always been, will get in the way of you thinking creatively. Another thing is infanticide, really killing an idea even before you allow it to form. So in some instances, what you see is at the incubation stage, you are seeing the gaps, you are seeing the disharmonies, you are seeing that potentially something can be introduced here, and all of a sudden you drop it, you just kill it. You say, well, it will never work. Even when you reach the aha moment, when you see the idea, you might even say it might not work. Or you might talk to someone and they will say to you, this idea is not going to work. So infanticide is something that you want to avoid as you develop your creative thinking abilities. Information overload is reliability, right? While information is typically useful and you need information, right? Once you start thinking of a potential of a particular problem and considering potential solutions, then you need information. But if you were to continue to absorb more and more and more information, at a point you might actually become so saturated with information that you become more confused than informed. And so the idea is that once you begin to have an idea and you have information, start working on your creative idea, as opposed to just assimilating more and more and more information. All right. Another thing that can get in the way of you thinking creativity, of you thinking creatively, is the paradigm, right? A way of looking at the world. That's just, if you have a particular way of looking at the world and you are unable to change your viewpoints, you are unable to change your philosophy, that can really get in the way of you thinking creatively. Now, there was a time I went to this college in Kano, in Nigeria, and I was talking to this professor. I said to him, why do you guys still post the results of the students on a notice board and you just post it out there? It looks to me like it is untidy. And then students' results is supposed to be something that is private to them. Why don't you use technology to disseminate this information so that only the students can see their results, rather than paste it on a notice board where everybody will see it? And the professor, he said to me, well, technology doesn't always work. And what you see here is paradigm, right? It has a particular way of looking at things. And so you don't want a way of looking at the world, just one, and refusing to change your viewpoint. That can get in the way of you thinking creatively. Then, of course, the idea of conformity is there. It is also a big problem in northern Nigeria, which is that we want to conform. We want to always do things because this is how they are done. This is how it is done. And I refer to this syndrome in Hausa as haka ake yi. All right? This is how it is done, and therefore I'm not about to change. I'm not about to deviate. If I deviate, I all of a sudden look unconventional, and I would rather conform. But if you want to be creative, you want to be deviant, you want to be different. I am also going to give you an example related to this. I had a colleague, I have this colleague who is here, he's an American, he's in Tennessee. So one day he went to do a research project in Ghana. And at a point he stepped out and he wanted to buy this chess board, a board that is used for, when you play this game, the chess. And then so someone took him to the market and he realized there are series of stores, each store next to another store that is selling these chess boards. And he went around from store to store looking at the chess boards. They look exactly the same. Nothing is changed, nothing to differentiate them. And even in the way that they market it is the same thing. Well, this got him surprised. And so when he came back, he said to me, I was surprised that nobody is introducing any innovation or creativity around how they design their chess boards or how they sell it so that they can be more competitive. Is this what happens in Nigeria? I'm like, well, probably. And so we decided to do a research project on that. And in 2020, I came down to Nigeria. I interviewed around 500 companies, 500 small businesses within over Wambai, where they're doing the shoes, as well as Fage, where they're doing the tailors. And so you can see these photos right here. This is yours truly with people doing shoes and the tailors also in Fage. And we wanted to just find out if they introduce any form of innovation or creativity in their work. So we would ask them, right, do you introduce anything new, or do you have any changes or or you add anything that makes your product different from that of the other? And usually they'll tell me no. And when I say to them why, they will say to me, well, that is how it is done. This is how it is done. And what that means is the idea of conformity, right? So we are worried what people may say if we do things differently. But an overwhelming percentage, 83%, was the percentage we found of people who were actually being conformative and altogether avoiding innovation or product differentiation. That research project has been published in the Journal of International Journal of Entrepreneurship, and the results are there. And that just leads us to understand that people are not trying to be innovative and introducing product differentiation. And it's all about conformity getting in the way of you thinking creatively. All right, let's talk about some creative thinking techniques. What are some of the things that can help you to think creatively, right? One of those is through brainstorming. Do not discount, the potential of people's ideas, people's contributions to a particular project or a particular problem that you're trying to solve. So of course, if you are a one-man business, you can do this at home with your family. Ask them to come and contribute. But of course, if you are running a small business, you have workers, bring them together, split them into small teams, and present them with a questionnaire. What is the problem with this? How do you think we can improve this product? Make guesses, make hypotheses. If we do this, if we do that, would it work? How would you do this differently, for example, right? And try to see in those small teams, what are some of the things coming through? Key principles is, as you brainstorm, postpone judgment. Do not be in a hurry to arrive at a judgment. Oh, this idea is not going to work. Everybody says it's not going to work, right? Don't be in a hurry to do that. Don't even be in a hurry to say everybody says it's a fantastic idea, we'll go for it. So kind of put time away before you arrive at a judgment. Focus on quantity. You want more and more ideas, which is why once you split in teams, you administer the questionnaires, break the teams, form new ones, and then also get them to answer a questionnaire again and see how it will work. Do not be afraid to hitchhike. So if someone comes up with a fantastic idea that's different from what you've been thinking, there's no harm actually in going for that. All right. Other things that you can really consider is the idea of pretense, using pretense to be able to, hello? Do you see the things that I see on my slides? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so some of the things are using pretense. How about crystal ball gazing, right? So here, I'm not saying that you should do in Hausa, buga kasa, right? So you're not doing that, but you're trying to take a look into the future. What can happen in 10 years' time? Potentially, what can happen in 10 years' time? All right. So if you put that, that is crystal ball gazing. And when you do that, you arrive at a creative idea, and thank you, a gigantic leap into the future. You're moving into the future, and therefore you can arrive at ideas, right? To what extent can you then begin to see how that can work and how you might present solutions? Also, another way to help you in your creative thinking is come up with non-existent problems, right? Try to solve a problem by kind of just thinking, if this were to happen, what are we going to do? Even though it doesn't exist, even though this problem is not there, think about a potential problem and how it might be solved. All of this will help you in being creative. And also wishful thinking. In Hausa, I would call this kanzon kurege. There's no harm in doing that to help you become more creative, right? If we were to start to have flying cars tomorrow, what can I do to take advantage of that? All right? What would be the things that we can do? So you have to start to think like that. Wishful thinking helps your creative ability. All right. So if you look at that, we can, having understood that, we can talk about entrepreneurial creativity. We can talk about entrepreneurial creativity, having discussed that. After all, entrepreneurship itself cannot be divorced from the idea of creativity. It cannot be divorced from the idea of innovation. Hence, most of the time you hear people say creativity and innovation, right? Whenever there is entrepreneurship, it is difficult to divorce it altogether from the concept of creativity and innovation, right? It's about, then of course, entrepreneurship is about sensing opportunities where others see chaos, contradiction, and confusion. Yet you see a solution. And once you begin to see solutions, what's happening here? There's disharmony. You're seeing a solution that can lead to a viable product, to a viable business. And by that, entrepreneurship. And you can see the connection with the idea of creativity and innovation. Once you have an understanding of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, it's easy to discuss entrepreneurial creativity, right? The implementation of novel ideas to establish a new business or a new program to deliver products or services. Implementing novel ideas to establish a new business or a new program to deliver products or services. When you look at that, typically you're seeing innovation come through in the context of entrepreneurship, right? How do entrepreneurs go ahead and develop creative products? How do entrepreneurs tap into opportunities that we just talked about? In essence, they're doing this through sensing, seizing, and transforming opportunities. When they sense opportunities, entrepreneurs actually go through environmental scanning, then also they go through their networks, and also through industry and academia collaborations, and they might also get a hint from customers and suppliers. So when you do environmental scanning from an entrepreneurial perspective, what you're doing is just looking at the environment, studying trends, trying to understand what is happening, right? And when you study the environment, you study trends, sooner than later, you can see these harmonies, you can see gaps, and potentially how these things might be changed. And so you are sensing at that point as an entrepreneur to get an idea of what business can be viably obtained. And of course, apart from that, your networks are also a very important source for arriving at a business idea. You might be talking to someone and they might just say to you, there's a situation happening here. And because of what they explain to you, you understand, oh, we can address this by introducing this product or this new service. And through your networks, therefore, you can arrive at ideas. There are industry and academia collaborations all over the world, right? Companies are asking professors to think about how they can solve problems, and this constitutes collaborations. Millions and millions of dollars are being invested every year. And from those studies, new ideas are being presented that can amount to entrepreneurial projects, that can amount to entrepreneurship. And therefore, collaborations there can be a source of an entrepreneurial idea. Customers and suppliers can also hint the entrepreneur as to a potentially new product, right? If you look at Alibaba introduced a concept that he calls the singles day event. What he realized was that there's usually the Valentine's Day in February, in which couples would actually have a celebration. They buy gifts. Because of that, there's a sales that triggers millions and millions of dollars to be spent. And having realized that pulse from customers, Alibaba quickly went ahead and introduced the Singles Day event, in which he's saying, well, those of us that are single can also come up with our own day where we buy gifts and presents for our loved ones, although we are not couples, we are singles. And because of the pulse of the customers, Alibaba understood that and developed a product that became very, very successful. Also, season is around, okay, this idea can be potentially viable. I'm going to take advantage of it, mobilize resources, and try to actually tap into it, right? get funding, get the people that can actually do the job, and go ahead and tap into the opportunity. Transforming relates to actually executing that business idea, selling out in the market, advertising, promoting your product, and learning by doing. You go ahead and you begin to learn. As you are learning, you are developing the product. This is what entrepreneurs do. An interesting concept also then to look at lastly is how entrepreneurs create opportunities, right? How do they form creative opportunities? A creative opportunity might be formed through the idea of causation or effectuation. By causation, we can talk about expertly predicting the future so as to control it. Ways through which entrepreneurs will form creative opportunities would be through causation or effectuation. And when you talk about causation, is predicting the future so as to control it, right? Focus on those predictable aspects of an uncertain future. Like we said, some people envisaged that there would be a global pandemic, and they developed products and positioned themselves to take advantage once the pandemic happened. And the rest is now history. So entrepreneurs are like that. They have an ability to predict what is going to happen in the future. This is an interesting example of Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi is an entrepreneur. She's Chinese. Right now, the richest woman in the world. What did she do? She was able to predict the future. In the 80s, she realized that it was only a matter of time before China became the manufacturing hub of the whole world, right? China was just developing industries and factories. And it seemed that after some time, China was going to become a global superpower in manufacturing. Because of that, she made a decision to set up a factory that is focused on packaging materials, because she knew and understood that once China became a global superpower from a manufacturing standpoint, every manufacturer was going to need packaging. So she positioned herself to produce and provide packaging for all of these companies that would emerge in China, even before they emerged. And the rest is now history. All right. Then let's talk about effectuation, right? If you're not, as an entrepreneur, forming opportunities through causation, then you're forming opportunities through effectuation, right? So rather than attempt to predict the future, which itself is really, really tasking, and it takes a bit of dexterity, a bit of even a bit of luck, right? Rather than predict the future, why not control the future so as not to predict it? Control the future in order not to have to predict it from an effectuation perspective. There are aspects of an unpredictable future that we can control. And I will break those down for you.
I think we're running out of time. So if maybe you could
right
up in maybe about 5 minutes.
Right, Ahmed. Yeah, okay, inside 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm almost done. Right. So we talk about principles related to effectuation. Bird in the hand, right? So typically, what do I have with me as an entrepreneur that would enable me to be to take advantage of opportunities? I already have with me who I am in terms of I have creative skills, I have determination, and so on. These are about me, who I am. And then there's also my knowledge, what I already know. And then, of course, who do I know? My networks. I can actually tap into all of those to arrive at an opportunity and take advantage of it. In Kano State, the late CEO of ASIAS, Alhaji Sanyaro Ahmed, he was, an oil marketer who is known all across the north and indeed all across Nigeria for his success in the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s. Right? What he took advantage of was actually his knowledge that he'd already acquired from having worked at British Petroleum, who he was, hardworking and determination. and whom he knew, his networks, people he already knew in that industry. And ACS went on and became a very successful company, right? Let's look at this quote by Martha. There's only one of you in all time. This expression is unique, and if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. And hence, only you know the things that you know. Only you have your kind of characteristics, and only you have your own set of networks. Because of that, you can develop it into an entrepreneurial opportunity. You can also use the lemonade principle, right? If you have lemon, go ahead and make lemonades, right? Kannywood star Lawal Ahmed, he was unknown until his series film Is There So became very popular on YouTube. Even that surprised him, but once he realized that, he quickly embraced it and monetized it. So make lemonades once you have lemons. Affordable loss, right? What can I afford to lose? On the basis of that, I can go into an opportunity knowing very much that I only put what I can afford to lose. Igbo traders, young Igbo traders, always go into apprenticeship. They will spend up to a year working with their mentor so that they learn the trade. It is an affordable loss principle here. So all they did was offer their time, but they know that even if it does not work, they go away with experience, and it was what they could afford to lose. Crazy quilt, right? Which is that typically I have an idea for a business, I can develop a product, but I want to limit my risk. As a result of that, I can quickly look for partners who will come in and also put a stake there. In that way, I limit my risks. There are already venture capital firms in Nigeria who would support your business and put a stake in there if you have a viable idea. Piloting the plane. The understanding that creating history is not something that is on autopilot, but entrepreneurs themselves can participate in shaping what that history is going to be, what the world is going to be like. And so why not go ahead and shape it today, as opposed to just waiting for an uncertain future. So look at what Yahuza Suya is doing. They have totally transformed our experience around how we buy and eat suya. Look at this quote from Machiavelli. This is my final slides. He says, there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. The innovator has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions, and lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new. Thank you very much. I'm going to take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for such a detailed and very interesting talk. We really appreciate it. Usually what we do is we have questions at the end of the session. Hopefully you're going to be here when, because we're going to have two more speakers, even though they're not going to be as detailed as you were, but I'm sure we're going to get quite some insightful information from them as well. Usually what I like to do is to, just briefly summarize what you've said, but it's really detailed. And given that time has already passed us by, I think we'll just skip right to the second speaker, who is Marlon Nuraddeen. Marlon Lawal and Aminu Bala. Marlon Lawal is an entrepreneurship and a professional, as well as a business advisor. He's an Islamic and rural finance specialist, and I think currently he works with MSMEs as an investment development as an investment developer. He's had over a decade experience in the finance sector. He's the founder and registrar of the Nigeria Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Allah, thank you very much for sparing your time to be with us as well. I understand your talk is not going to be as detailed as Dr. Nuraddeen, probably about 15-20 minutes. So I'll leave the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Arewa Mentorship Program, and I appreciate the submission of Dr. Nuraddeen on what it takes to understand the basic rudiments of creativity and innovation. Actually, I really commend the effort, and I believe the Northern Nigeria is on the right track to reposition the region and explore all the explorable in directing our youth towards a journey that will give us success and change the narratives of dependency syndrome as it is very prevalent in the country. So what I intend to present as regard to innovation and creativity Nigeria, I wanted to first of all make a suggestions to the theme. I wanted to first of all start by making suggestions to the theme of the discussion, even though the paper presented by Dr. Nuraddeen have already spoken and have aligned to the point of view in which I'm coming to look at the theme of the discussion. So my suggestion is that the theme should be creativity and innovation in entrepreneurial journey. So we believe that entrepreneurial journey could be at start, and at any point in time, an entrepreneur can still embrace other basic ideas that will turn around the enterprise for betterment and for more value addition to the market and to the customer, and then earn sufficient return of investment at the end of the tunnel. So having suggest that, I wanted to first of all to discuss on two issues. One, look at the challenges exposed by globalization, which started from the revolution triggered by advancement in information and technology, and how the globalization affected most of our businesses within the African continent and Nigeria, Northern Nigeria in particular. And then secondly, I will try and look at three major variables that bring to bear the impact of innovation and creativity in business journey. One, the issue has to do with the issue of research and development. And then secondly, issue of R&D, research and development, new product development, and then technology adoption. So first of all, we believe that businesses that were operating in Northern Nigeria in particular, early 90s, 70s, and 80s to late 20th century, which is in early late 90s, we are doing business in a more conventional, a more traditional way. And most of our people that succeeded in the business arena, businesses are people that invested heavily. Hello? Yeah, okay.
Go on. I said, we can hear you.
Okay. I said these are individuals that invested heavily in their time, their commitment to develop the businesses they have developed, which gives them an edge in the economic space and business space in Northern Nigeria. But however, emergence of 21st century, when the information and communication technology evolved and then separate across African continent and coming down to Nigeria, it really challenged the status quo. That create a huge challenge in the way and manner we conduct business and the way we perceive business management and entrepreneurial journey to be. To us, in the domain of entrepreneurship, those people that succeeded, we are now considering as a reference point to entrepreneurship. Most of them, I'm sorry, were not, they cannot be able to scale and then pass all the criteria that we're going to set for a qualified entrepreneur with all the attributes of entrepreneur that is being documented in literature. Because to us, most of those people are mere businessmen and women, because hardly for them to embrace changes. They really do business by teaching and maintaining the status quo. So the way and manner in which they set knows and nurture the business that is the tradition, and whosoever is following their terrain will adhere to the same tradition. So we believe in the contemporary world, there is a renewal or the need for making a renewal effort to challenge the status quo in the way and manner we do and perceive businesses, so that we create a very good edge, a very good position for creativity and innovation. Because many people selected a particular industry in which they are serving, they are succeeding, but over time, there are a number of evolutions, whether resulting from information and communication technology, whether it is a report or as a result of research and development, or whatever, which affected the same industry they are operating. So instead for them to keep themselves aware of others' development and embrace and key into those development, and hence the way they are doing business by cutting all the operations challenges, and then add value to the products they are producing, and for the betterment of the customer and for achieving renewed or highest expected return on investment, they were so reluctant. So what I trying to say in essence is that the modern way of qualifying an entrepreneur from the way we know it traditionally in the northern Nigeria is for somebody to embrace creativity, which has to do with the generating ideation or a factor that trigger a new idea, which is resulted from imagination. On when such an idea is being generated, it will go a long way to add value to the business, and then to create opportunity for more return of investment to the entrepreneur, to the owner of the enterprise, and then add value out there to the society, to the consumer, and to the industry. So innovation, which of course are converting those creative idea into more value added, a more value addition. So along this background, what we are seeing that most of the businesses that are operating in northern Nigeria and other African countries are very much skeptical to embrace new changes, because change management has been a very challenging issue. Most of the MSMEs and business communities doesn't know much about change management and extent at which they will manage the change and key into take the benefit accompanied by such changes. So we are saying that innovation is an oxygen, right? It's an oxygen that drives the longevity of an enterprise. Any enterprise or any entrepreneur that failed to embrace innovation, that failed to create distinguishing attributes, that failed to develop a niche and carve a niche for himself and distinguish himself either in the way and manner he operates the enterprise, or the way and manner he develop a product that is desired by the market, or his ability to discover a fresh market or a fresh need, or his ability to change the raw materials input used in producing the same product within the industry. So it means such entrepreneur or enterprise remain Fabian entrepreneur who is very much skeptical of embracing new changes and always align himself with status quo. So if you happen to be any entrepreneur that dwell heavily and maintaining the status quo, hardly for such entrepreneur achieve entrepreneurial objectives, and hardly for him to achieve longevity objectives, and hardly for him to have a strategies that will make him to be relevant within the period of his running the enterprise, and then create path for moving within the future years. So that is one thing about creativity and innovation. Like I said, they are all oxygen. They are oxygen that drives the life and longevity of an enterprise. And of course, for an enterprise to embrace innovation, to embrace creativity and adopt same, in the enterprise management, in their business domain, they actually need to appreciate the value of dynamism in customer needs and wants. Market is not static, and customer demand is not static. Customers are human beings, which mostly are rational beings, whose needs and wants are gauged by their lifestyle. So whenever there is a change in lifestyle, it means that the entrepreneur has to be abreast and has to keep himself open to know the bearing and new directions in which the market now is focusing, so that he can easily align himself and be relevant in the moving market. Otherwise, the entrepreneur will end up find it very difficult in surviving the tense competition within the globalized, highly influenced market space. And secondly, whether we like it or not, there are a number of chain links of businesses that most of the people that remain to be in conformity with status quo fail to embrace the chain links of their businesses. We believe the best way to do innovation, apart from embracing technology, aligning yourself with the dynamism in customer needs and wants, align with the new technology that affects the industry and the way and manner you do your businesses. And of course, there is a way of there is another way of embracing business chain links. Let me give you an example. For many years, Kano is widely known for leather products, right? Shoes and bags, like Dr. Nuraddeen mentioned. But then within the same industry, there are other products that person that has remained 20, 30 years doing leather products. There are other chain links businesses that either chain links can be from the side of supply of inputs that will enable him to deliver his own products, or the main primary raw materials, the main major primary raw materials that he rely upon to produce the products he is producing. So if such businesses such entrepreneur can embrace the chain links, there is another way of distinguishing himself and paving way of his longevity and survival within the turbulence business environment. And secondly, if we talk about textile industry, most of the people in Page, the tailors in Page, remain tailors, appreciating their customers to give them the fabric to sew for them, but fortunately for them, not knowing that within the industry of garment tailoring services they're offering, there are more than 101 business opportunities that they can tap. If at all they are innovative, they are creative, that will change the fortune, their fortune within the industry. Now, if you have been a garment maker or a tailor that offers tailoring services for 10 years, I see no reason why you cannot embrace fabric garment making, organizing yourself and create a tailoring training school where you can create those skills, demonstrate those skills and train other people. So the training side point of view is going to be a learning opportunity for the people that are aspiring to be in that industry, for you to now train them, share the valued experience, accumulated experience you gathered within the number of years you have been operating. So that will be a huge opportunity for you to turn around your business by leveraging on those chain links businesses that will give you an edge within the competitive market and industry you are pursuing. And secondly, we believe that most of the ideas put forward and the strategies of generating creative ideas, as rightly mentioned by Dr. Nuraddeen, and how an enterprise could be innovative, cannot be born in vacuum. They are being subjected, or they are a result of research and development. Many people can see a wonderful sources of wonderful idea. They can come up with a problem. They can identify a problem that needs a prompt solutions. But because they don't have the mindset to embrace the research and development and to see how those information can turn around their businesses and give them an edge. So that has been, that makes them unable to now harness and embrace those research and development to be a vehicle that will give them an opportunity of coming up with a viable, workable, and feasible, innovative idea that will give them an edge. I can recall for the past 10 years of experience, I've been working with Kaduna State Investment and Property Development Company as business development service provider who has a first degree in entrepreneurship and master's degree in rural finance and entrepreneurship. I believe that the policy put forward by Nigerian government, which attributed embedding or integrated entrepreneurship education in the Nigerian educational system at all levels of education, especially at tertiary education, is a breakthrough. That policy alone bring about an opportunity for entrepreneurial education, entrepreneurship education, and professionalism in the context of entrepreneurship. So I personally challenge myself and challenge the policy. I now ask myself, what are the benefits, what are the entrepreneurial idea that can evolve from this policy of embedding entrepreneurship education in Nigerian educational system? So after a series of thinking, and I come up with an idea of coming up with entrepreneurship development professional body, just like an Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM, and many other professional bodies that can consider entrepreneurship as a profession, not just as a practice of creating value, creating goods and services for value addition. So this policy, I see it a mechanism that bring about onboarding professionalism from the domain of entrepreneurship and innovation, who will invariably going to be a business development service providers, professional business consultant that will engage MSMEs and add value to MSMEs ecosystem in the country, and who will challenge the public and the private sector operations and bring about entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial approach in managing the affairs of the private and public establishments in the country. So that makes me to come up with an idea of establishing the Nigerian Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship as a professional body. It will may surprise you that when coming with this idea 5 years or 7 years ago, many people couldn't believe that this can work. And the first people that I discussed about it said, no, you cannot do this. This cannot work. Forget about this idea, it will not work. I believe in myself and believe in that one day, one time, the NIE, Nigerian Institute of Innovation, will be, a relying a body that will create opportunity for MSMEs to have easy access to finance, easy access to venture capitalists, and creating a business ecosystem that will onboard experts within the domain of entrepreneurship who will offer the desired tailored need business advisory services, and then create a business network that where suppliers, producers of products, and all value chain actors will network, transact business together, and then develop the industry they are operating. As I'm speaking to you, the NIE have gotten its own license to operate as a professional body. We are create a model, a very unique model of business ecosystem platform, where we intend to connect and network our members together. We are going to, with the intention of categorizing our members into a cluster, into the domain of industry, and link them together, and making sure that each industry is being matched with experts who are coming from the same industry for value addition. So I have a candid belief.
Sorry to cut you off. I think we're running out of time. So if we could just conclude, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you can just conclude. Are you done already? It seems like you're muted. We can't hear you for some reason. Sorry, we can't hear you now. Yeah, who can you hear him, or is it just me?
No, I cannot hear him.
Okay.
Just now.
Yes, it just got off now. But I think because we're running out of time, we really appreciate you sparing time again to give us this talk. You've talked about a number of interesting things. Some reiterating what has been said by Dr. Nuraddeen, what you've mentioned. I think you're doing a really wonderful job with the NIIE, and we really commend your good job. I think we'll just move on straight to the third speaker for today, Mr. Badamasi Aliyu Abdullahi. Mr. Badamasi is a certified, accredited, and a licensed national business development service provider. He's also a certified trainer and a youth development consultant. And he does help the micro, small, and medium-sized businesses to start, grow, as well as expand their businesses. He is a presidential award-winning entrepreneur in Youth with Enterprise and Innovation in Nigeria, which is the WIN program. And he has consulted over 300 businesses in the Mafita intervention program back in 2019. I think I'll just cut his CV short. All the CVs I've received are really quite long. So I'll call on Dr. Badamasi. I think Dr. Badamasi is with us, right? Is he here? Dr. Badamasi or Mr. Badamasi, are you here?
Yeah, I think he's here.
If we can unmute.
Seems like he's having some technical difficulties.
Right. Have you noticed him though?
Yeah, I saw him actually. You can see Badamasi Aliyu.
Yes. Mr. Badamasi, can you hear us?
And he's a co-host now. He should be able to unmute. Or maybe we can.
Yes. So I think while he's trying to sort that out, I've seen a comment on the chat. This one's a question, I think. Again, you can use the chat option, or you could use the raise hand option if you want to ask questions. The talks have been really detailed, so I'm sure there's a number of questions. In the meantime, before that, Dr. Badamasi, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute yourself, or do you want to ask? Do you want us to pick a few questions?
I think we can start with the questions, right?
Yeah,
because he's not there. It's like.
So I can't see any hand raised, so now's the time. If you want to ask a question, you can use the raise hand option to ask a question. This one, a post from Dan Asabe saying, Assalamu alaikum, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. My question is, how can one start implementing his new business idea in order to make it successful with little resources at hand? So his main question is regarding resources. Dr. Nuraddeen, do you want to make a comment on that?
You can hear me now, right?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I think this is an important question, and a lot of the time you get asked these questions. One of the most important things that the entrepreneur does is he senses the opportunity, and then he goes out there and then he mobilizes the resources that are needed in order to tap into those opportunities. And so from the sensing point of view, it's always going to start from there if you're going to have a compelling product. So do you have a viable product that is compelling, that is creative? You have already created value. What that means is that you now have a product that will be really, really marketable. People want to pay for it. Now, if you have that, it makes it easy, really, or a little bit easy to begin to consider how you might mobilize resources for that. What I normally tell people is that, of course, in Nigeria, we have a lot of restrictions, a lot of impediments around how you might access financing if you go to financial institutions. But for the entrepreneur, really, you might consider what we talked about in terms of using what you have at hand. So you have your own knowledge and skills and experiences. You have your own personal kind of skills in terms of creativity. All of that is helpful, and importantly, your networks. Now, your networks could be an important source of informational, financial, and physical support. Your networks can really help you in terms of how you might distribute, promote a product, in terms of how you might actually access a bit of financing to get your business started. What that means is that maybe family or friends who can actually buy into your idea can come into your business. But the most important thing really is have a compelling product that is viable, that people can see value in, that actually, if they put their money there, it is going to succeed. Now, of course, in an ideal world, if you take this to a venture capitalist, they will be very happy to finance your business. But we know that there are a lot of limitations around access to finance in northern Nigeria in particular. And to that extent, entrepreneurship is really constrained. I know that. But think about what they say in terms of start small and then aim big. So with whatever resources you have and that you can actually assemble through potentially networks, which is one of the most the viable avenue for you to actually get some financing. And then you have a commitment that you want to actually achieve success with a lot of discipline and hard work, you can succeed with your product. Of course, if you have a decent product and you develop a business plan for it, there's just an opportunity that a venture capitalist could finance your business. And like we said in one of my slides, and these slides are going to be made available, we've even highlighted a number of venture capitalist firms in Nigeria that you can approach with your idea, with your products that you want them to finance, including financial institutions, banks, and so on. So that's a tricky question, but that would be my answer. Yeah, Ahmed, you're muted.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I don't know whether Lawal have anything to add on to that. Do you have anything to add, or can we get the second? Do you have anything to add on to that, or?
We can't hear you, Lawal.
For some reason, we can't hear you.
Maybe he can sign out and come back again.
There seems to be a problem with the sound. Okay, I'll unmute Yahuza Tahir. Yahuza Tahir, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, particularly that of Mala Nura or Dr. Nuraddeen. Without missing much of my words and time, let me go straight to the question. I had Dr. Nura highlighting some of the areas of constriction with regards to creative thinking. But I'm curious to know, as someone who maybe fall under one condition or another of this constriction, how am I going to be able to maybe withstand this condition, that is, get myself out of it and start doing creative thinking? I hope you get me right.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Should I just go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Right. Yahuza, that's a very interesting question. But I think if you look at in terms of how these things were presented, it just tells you that doing this is a problem, which means that if you do the opposite, you do the reverse, right? You're going to solve the problem, you're going to get out of it. So for example, if you're looking at the world in just one way, you're refusing to be creative, then what you want to do is really to stop looking at the world in just one way and be open to various points of view, for example, right? And we talked about also conformity, the need to feel like you also really have to do what everybody else is doing. And that means it, and we mentioned that it's a problem. What that means is that you want to actually deviate from that. Be open to the idea that I can be different. There's nothing wrong with that. I can actually deviate if I think it's going to be better, if it is going to lead to a more viable outcome. So typically, as we highlighted all of those things, we said these things are problems. So don't do that, right? And so if you just go the opposite way, typically you are getting out of it.
Thank you for that. Any other question? If you could use the raise hand option to ask, just so that you could ask your question. I think probably maybe a question I have, probably something maybe I might have missed in both your presentations. I'll probably address this to Lawal. I think I read that usually what you find out with people who have excelled in, coming up with something innovative, it's because they've had a number of those inventions, but then just one of those, tend to make it. So it's all about really the number of ideas, not just, focusing on one particular idea and then trying to see how we could improve it, but rather working on a number of different ideas, and then probably one of those could make it. What do you think about that? Should I focus on something and try to see how I can perfect it, or should I really start thinking of how can I come up with a number of innovative, number of innovations? Unfortunately, we still can't hear you. Probably, as suggested, you might have to leave and then rejoin back in, probably. For some reason, we can't hear you now. While you're doing that, what do you think about that, Dr. Nuraddeen?
Yeah, Ahmed. So my answer to that would be, really, entrepreneurs are experts at what they do. And becoming an expert means that over the years, you've been trying things, you've been doing things. And that means coming up with a number of innovative ideas. Some of them work, some start to go well, and then they fail along the way. And, so sometimes you have a viable product, along the way, it becomes obsolete. But because you become an expert over the years, you're coming up with ideas, you're trying them. And sooner than later, you arrive at that one big project or one big idea that makes a breakthrough for you. So I think it is normal. This is what we see for entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs who are creative, that they tend to have a variety of innovations, a variety of innovative ideas. And that just allows them to become experts over the years at what they do. They understand that, you keep doing it, you keep going, even when you fail, you go again. And eventually it's you arrive at a very fantastic product.
Thank you for that. Yes. I think you've also mentioned, please, again, if you want to ask your question, just use the raise hand option, and I'll get you to ask your question. If you want to post that on the chat box, you can do that as well. In your talk, you were talking about how your wife at a point in time said, "Oh, probably you're just doing something, because you're really enjoying, I guess, that sugar cane." But I think, sorry.
I think we also have Badamasi now.
But then what just struck my mind is, of course, you have a lot of things which you're doing, but then you've mentioned really sometimes it's that comment that you get which trying to limit people from really progressing in those ideas. And I think it's interesting, as I've mentioned, probably it's not something that you want to go into, but then really identifying those set of comments and see how you could really walk past through that. I think that's key. Sorry, Jacob, you want to say something?
I say we have Badamasi is here with us.
Oh, okay, right. Can you have Mr. Badamasi? I think I've already introduced Mr. Badamasi. So if you can go straight ahead to your talk, we're running out of time now, so probably maybe about 10, 15 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to join a panel session today to discuss on the topic creativity and innovation in business. Creativity and innovation in business is quite a very important topic to business owners or to micro, small, and medium enterprises, right from the start of the business or at the growth stage or at the expansion stage. This topic is very, very important because many people, when they want to start business, they will start asking questions whether, is this the right business for me to start? How am I going to start it? The reason why they mostly ask these kinds of questions is because they don't do their homework. They don't wear their creative thinking and innovation hats, which would have allowed them to answer a lot of questions even before thinking of starting a business. Creativity and innovation is important because, for example, if a business owner wants to get a capital to start a business, whether from financial institutions like banks or from government grants, they want to see what he has on the table, which, for example, if I could remember when the UN program, that is Youth with Enterprise and Innovation in Nigeria, started during the President Goodluck Jonathan's administration, it is a program that allows or called youths all over Nigeria to apply in a business plan competition where they will be given grants from 1 million naira to 10 million naira. And it was a very competitive business plan competition, and which at each episode, more than 150,000 applicants or more than 100,000 applicants applied, which at the end of the day, only 1,005 were able to scale through to get the grant. In this application or business plan competition application, one of the major determinant of success is the applicant's ability to use creativity and innovation in putting up his application. For example, many people want to start a business, but they don't take time to see how they are going to differentiate themselves with other products. Quite frankly, there are many different types of innovation. For example, product innovation, process innovation, or business model innovation. At every stage of a business owner can apply any of these. For example, I could remember there was a woman in the UN program who applied with our local traditional dish that is called dambu. A lot of people laughed and they thought that it was not practical for the woman to secure a 10 million naira grant by simply applying to run a business selling dambu. But what they don't know is that this woman has put together a package of innovation around that traditional dish, from the way she cook it, to the way she package it, and to the way she deliver it to her diverse customers. And when she scaled through on the first stage, she was also able to scale through on the second stage. On the third stage, when she went to Abuja to present her business to a group of panel, she went together with her ingredients. On that day, she prepared that dambu and took it to the panel session. And while they were analyzing her business, they tested the product, which eventually guaranteed her securing a grant of about 10 million naira. This is very, very important for business owners or youths who are intending to start their businesses, to think through and decide whether they have to really apply creativity and innovation in starting or running their businesses. Also, as business development service providers, there is a tool we use in order to help our customers to create a product or to innovate, either in the starting or growth stage or the expansion stage of their businesses. And this model is called the Scamper model. This Scamper model is an acronym of where the S stands for to substitute, the C stands for to combine, the A stands for to adapt, the M stands for to modify, the E stands for eliminate, while the R stands for reverse. Let me give you an example. When tea sellers started using tea joints as a business, what we normally know was just selling tea and bread, where people would just go there, sit on the bench, and ask the tea seller to prepare them for a cup of tea and a pair of bread. But eventually, somebody thought that there is need for a combination of tea and bread together with an egg. So they have started combining from using tea and bread with egg. So from this take us from the stage of substitution to stage of combination. Then there is a stage of adaptation. We can see that there was a time when tea sellers started selling Indomie. This is adaptation. The growth of the Indomie industry, or I don't know what they call it, the growth of the development of Indomie necessitated the business owners who are engaged in tea selling to
I think we've lost you there. I hope it's not just me. Yeah, I think we've lost him there. But I think, yes, he did mention a number of important things as well. I hope you can hear me. Can you all hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yes. Talking about really doing your homework, it's very important. Whatever it is that you want to set out to do, then of course you carry out a thorough market search, really understand what it is that you want to do, and of course think of how you could bring creativity into that particular business that you want to run. And then not to sometimes we underestimate things. The example that is given about the lady who's doing the dambu might take it, oh, this is, she's not going anywhere with that. But then at the end of the day, I think, especially one of the questions was about funding, how with limited resources. So if, as addressed by Dr. Nuraddeen, if that idea is something which is really creative, something where you bring in is something very innovative, it doesn't matter what that process is, as far as you're bringing in that creativity, that innovation into that particular process, then you get a very much higher chances, for example, in this case, when you're applying for funding. So I haven't seen any hand raised. Don't know if there's any question from the organizing or any comment from the organizing committee. Yakubu or Ahmed, and you and other organizing committee members, or the mentors, if there are any comments, any questions from your end, our speakers are still here. I think there was a comment about the slides. Yes, I think Dr. Nuraddeen did mention that we're going to get the slides, and these are usually posted on Telegram. So do follow that. You should get the slides. Any question or any other comments?
Yeah, I think, Dr. Tariq, I have one question.
Yes, please.
It will be directed to Dr. Nuraddeen. Dr. Nuraddeen, like, as a starter now, is it good for me if like I have some capital and I want to start a business? Is it good to try like different kind of businesses, or like I should just focus on one? Because sometimes it's really difficult to grow a particular business, but maybe you can jump from, you know, one type to another and here and there. So what's the best strategy for me?
Right. Yeah. So, Dr. Okubu, I think an important thing to understand is that these things take a bit of time to actually mature. So usually if you are going into a new field, a new area that you've not done business, then you're going to need to take all the time to learn that particular industry, to learn how that business works. And it is very important, because what we see is people starting a business. Along the way, they say, oh, it's not going to work. And it's not so much because there's lack of prospects, but more of lack of patience around that. But usually creative ideas, creative entrepreneurial ideas will actually take time to manifest and grow. So what I would say is there's no harm in having your hands in more than one business, but at the same time, you're having an understanding along the way that you're going to have to learn this trade. You're going to have to learn this business and be patient with your idea so that it grows. Growing in terms of knowing and understanding the business, building networks and connections, which is essentially what will help the business to grow itself. And of course, as the product itself is evolving, you are learning, and now you are modifying and also developing the product itself and making it better. So the idea of incremental innovation. Without saying much about the audience on this particular platform right now, there's my mom right now on this platform, and she's listening. She's a very good example of what you just talked about. Right now, I know by every standard, you can describe her as a very successful entrepreneur. But I know since I was young, you know, the businesses she's been involved and how these businesses have taken time over years, you know, to grow incrementally and slowly. Many people have started businesses, and along the way they say, oh, it's not going to work, and they drop it. So the idea, I think, is you can have 1, 2, or 3 businesses, but have at the back of your mind that it's going to take time for your business to grow.
Right.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yakub, can you take over for a sec, please?
Okay. So
I think that's someone raising his hand.
Yes. iPhone. Someone with iPhone, I think, is raising his hand or her hand.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
My name is Mukhtar Bauro.
Okay.
I am the regional manager, Northwest Bank of Industry.
Great.
Actually, I got to know about your program yesterday when I was sent an invite from Dr. Nuraddeen Nuhu, who happens to be a very good friend of mine.
Great.
First and foremost, I want to appreciate what you guys are doing. is very laudable because, you know, inclusive growth, as we know, is one of the most essential, you know, in curbing insecurity that is bedwelling, as we know here, particularly in the Northwest, banditry, kidnappings and whatnot, because these people don't have jobs. And the reason is because they are lacking in skills. So what is the option, you know, entering on these activities? However, at the Bank of Industry, initially, the Bank of Industry, we focus mostly on large enterprises, that is big businesses. We're talking about maybe upwards of 50 million, 100 million, 10 million above. But over time, you know, we have engaged in a sort of a paradigm shift, which now there's a particular focus, interest on MSMEs, that is micro, small enterprises. Because we believe that this is where the impact is. Because it's not only about profitability, but supporting folks at the bottom of the pyramid in order to achieve inclusive growth. But over time, what we have observed is that there is a high level of mortality. Because as one of the leading DFIs, you know, providing funding, you know, in this space, you know, is we are not actually giving grants, but we're giving loans. So the rate of repayment, it is very, very poor, particularly for those that are startup businesses. So what we have been doing right now is that to encourage startup businesses, you know, to source for funding, you know, from maybe family and friends, not to go for loans. Because if it goes bad, you know, it becomes a burden that has to be paid. So the Bank of Industry, what we do is we focus on, you know, enterprises that are existing, because that is the only way that we can continue supporting that sector, that space. So my comment is that, you know, folks that are having creative ideas or maybe want to go into businesses, they should first, you know, take a year or two, you know, to establish the businesses, maybe using equity from maybe their own internal funds that is not a loan. And then when it gets to a desired stage, the Bank of Industry is always available. For instance, we have our offices in Kaduna. That is the Northwest, our Northwest operations. We have our offices in Kaduna. We have office in Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto. But Zamfara and Jigawa is still in the pipeline. And very soon we are going to open office in those states, in these states. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, really, for this insightful comment. Dr. Tariq, are you back?
Yes, I am back. Yeah, thank you. I've missed the first part, but I think, yeah, thank you for that comment. But just a quick one, how can people get information regarding, you know, requirements in terms of funding, of course, for more developed businesses, as you've mentioned? Is that a website that people could go to, or, I don't know, pop into your office? You have, you know, just want to know. Sorry, are you there?
Mukhtar, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Actually, you know, our requirements, you know, you can, you know, for those that are not IT savvy, because most people at the bottom of the pyramid, you know, they're all like informal sector. So basically, we encourage them to come, you know, to our offices in those locations, like walk-in customers, so that because we have a dedicated staff that can sit down with them and have a discussion. And then there, you know, the list of requirements are presented to them. You know, hand-holding too is very essential, because they need some level of encouragement, because at times when they see the requirements, they feel that it's a bit too much. the risk assessment criteria, because there are so many, documentation. Because our people at this part, I mean, based on my experience, is that there is a whole lot of encouragement. Otherwise, when they see it, when they go with the list of requirements, you don't get to hear from them again. So basically, we are proactive. We do hand-holding. We encourage them to ensure that we go past documentation and up to the point of approvals and disbursement. That is one. And then two, the Bank of Industry's website is boi.ng. boi.ng. On the website, the list of requirements are there for each of our products. That is, be it large enterprises or small scale enterprises or micro lending. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. We have probably a question from Mahi Abdurrahman. Can you unmute yourself? Mahi Abdurrahman, a comment or a question?
Thank you so much.
Quite difficult to hear you.
Some sound issues.
Yes. I think there was another comment about the slides. Of course, the slide has mentioned. I think you're probably having issues with your mic. So do you have any question? I think it's 4 now. We've been here for 2 hours. If no further question, maybe we'll just, Yaqub, if you want to just thank our
Mukhtar is raising his hands again, I think.
Okay.
Actually,
we can't hear you. Yes.
Actually, sorry, I just dropped it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So probably I think this brings us to the end of the session. Just a thank you address, Yaqub, and then we'll call it today.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Tariq, on behalf of the organizing committee, of course, we would like to once again thank our speakers and the audience also for coming. And inshallah, we will post the slides on the Telegram. I don't know if Dr. Nuraddeen will have some final words, then we can call it a day. Dr. Nuraddeen, the rest of the speakers, if you have some final words.
Thank you. I really want to just thank the forum again for having me. I appreciate this. Thank you, everyone. And this is a very important topic. I think there's no better way to improve our region, particularly northern Nigeria, and of course our country at large. There's no better way to improve our economy and the well-being of our people than entrepreneurship. And when you talk about entrepreneurship, basically it comes down to the idea of creativity and innovation. We must embrace creativity and innovation. We must change how we're doing business. We must challenge the status quo and start to do things differently. And the only way we can do that is entrepreneurship, creativity, and innovation. And I've already mentioned to you earlier on, I think important things to consider is how can you be creative in advertising and promoting your products. I, inshallah, would be happy to come back on this platform and talk to the audience around how they can creatively advertise and promote their products. And then also there is the concept of branding, which I also think is important. People doing businesses without necessarily, conceptualizing what identity they want to promote, what identity they want to give their products, and in essence, what steps specifically they can take towards developing that identity and promoting it, and importantly, positioning that product in the mind of the consumer, basically. So I'd be happy also to come back and talk about branding to the audience. So I want to thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I can see Lawal, Mr. Lawal is here. Do you have a final word as well?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
Right. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. You have a good day.